Well, many a times the society can be very cruel to women or even families who have children living with disabilities or development delays.
He was a normal child, but when he was about 1.5 years, we noted that he had some delays.
One thing with the children with autism, they like routine.
I was not taking Crispin for the therapy, I was taking myself because I was also in denial.
Well, many a times the society can be very cruel to women or even families who have children living with disabilities or development delays. But today, we are creating awareness on autism, and I just want us to celebrate women and families and parents who are living with these children with autism. On the show, I have Elizabeth Mutua, a mother to Crispin, who is a child living with autism, and he is 12 years old. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Mabel.
You can say hi to our viewers.
Good morning. I'm happy to be with you here today.
Thank you for coming. And I'm also here with the director of Rare Gem Talent School, Kitengela. She takes care. She is a mother to many children who are living with disabilities. Karibu sana, Nancy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for having me here.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are just going to talk about autism and raise awareness about autism. And I want to start with you, Elizabeth. You're having a child who is autistic. How has it been? How did it start? How did you get to know that my child is this way?
Yes, thank you, Marvel. As Marvel has said, my boy is 12 years old. He actually turned 12 yesterday.
Wow.
24th March. And so when we gave birth to him in 2010, he was a normal child. We didn't notice any challenges at birth. And so he was a happy boy, always excited. Went through normal care child development, went through the normal statutory government approved vaccinations. But when he was about 1.5 years, that is when we started we noted that he had some delays, because there were some expectations of a normal child at that age, like murmuring. He still didn't have a word. He'll just make a noise, a hum, but he didn't have any word, like baba, mama. So when he was 2 years, that's when we sought for a pediatric review. But the pediatrician noted that it was still very early, so he recommended we wait until when he was 2.5, and that's when we went for a review. The first assessment was his audiology. So his hearing assessment was done, and they confirmed it was normal. And so the next step was to visit a neurologist, which we did when he was about 3 years. So that is when we were informed that he shows signs of being on the autism spectrum. It was a new word to us. We had not heard about autism before, so we have been learning a lot since then.
You mentioned at 1.5 years, you already worried your child is not murmuring, not mentioning mama or daddy. But parents, there are so many parents who get to wait to 3 years, to 3.5 years for their children to start talking. What was in you for you to just seek for medical help at that early age?
Yeah, as I have said, this was our firstborn, so we didn't have any other child in the house. But we had interacted with children for our sisters, our brothers, our friends. So we had an idea about normal child development. At least at about 1 year, 1.5, the child should start having a few sounds, a few words.
So from there, is it right for me to say that you getting to interact with other children from your family members, and were you excited, Ama, you were anxious can I call it anxiousness? Were you anxious of, why is my child not talking?
Initially, I think we were relaxed,
Mm-hmm.
and that is why I think we waited for 1.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because normally, okay, children development is different. Children develop differently,
Mm-hmm.
and they achieve the milestones at different stages. But yes, it could be anxiety and expectations from the society that we were in that made us to get concerned.
Wow.
Because we didn't get it from a medical consultant or from the hospital.
So, Mwalimu, I have a question for you. Now that you handle children with disabilities and development delays, can you just tell us what is autism? Let us understand what autism is.
Autism has not so much well understood,
Mm-hmm.
because you find that when the children are growing, like Madam Elizabeth has just explained,
Mm-hmm.
the development sometimes it is up to expectation. Like you look at where the child is growing, like starting to walk, those milestones they achieve them in at the same right age. Like if it is sitting down, and then there is not something that you can hold and say it is during birth that this happened, and therefore sometimes it takes some time for somebody to understand, because you see there are those expectation and the child is meeting. But when now it comes to, as she has said, 1.5 years or even over 2 years, and the child is not speaking, remember there was no motor challenges, so the child was started walking, so those milestones were achieved, and sometimes the children start murmuring and they say some things, but when it comes now to proper speech development, that is when now the child with autism does not develop, and that is why now that it takes time for parents to hold something and say he didn't walk, he didn't cry. I'm sure maybe Crispin cried during birth. So there are those now things that are hard to just hold for autistic, for autism. So it is not so easy to just get to know it before 2 years.
Okay. So, Mama Crispin, can you tell us, before at 2.5 years, and now you're seeing a doctor, you're seeking medical help, and you're being told your child has autism and that is why he's this way, what came to your mind at that point?
Yes, as I have said earlier, all the other milestones actually were achieved within the normal age. Like his teething was okay, his walking was came in early, and it is just the speech, or rather the sound, the verbal that was delayed. When we were informed about the autism animal, I still call it an animal because it's been a journey that you learn every day. And when we visited the neurologists, he tried to explain to us what autism is.
Yes.
And it was not clear because a lot was still new to that condition even then. And we were also prompted to start researching about it on Google. We started learning about it. Yeah, so we have been learning a lot from the doctors, from Google, from friends, from different forums. Yes, and also when we also saw the neurologists, they recommended several tests that were done. MRI test which was done in one of the hospitals in Nairobi. And the report read delayed myelination. So sort of they sensed that there was some bit of slow development in the brain. He was also tested for ECG, which came out normal, and so they didn't have any issue with that. And from that, now we were recommended to start like having therapies for him, including speech therapy and also occupational therapy or behavioral therapies, and also diet. We were introduced to the autism diet, that is eliminating sugar, wheat products, and also milk, or rather casein, dairy products. And the first doctor also gave us some medicine that I still remember the name. It was Ritalin. And it was 1 tablet. We cut into 4 and we give him a quarter of that tablet. At that age, he was around 3 years. So when you give him that tablet in the morning, he'll just calm down and sleep on the couch. He'll be very dormant. But later, in the afternoon, he'll be very active, like he'll be compensating for the unutilized energy.
Yes.
So we only used that for only 2 weeks, and we stopped because of we could see the effects before he started using it and the time when he was already using it. So and also researching from Google, because we could see that if you start the medication at that age, then the child is likely to have it for the lifetime. And for sure, we were not ready for that economic impact because the funds were also limited. So we've been doing a lot through neurologists, therapies, and also school came in. Crispin started school when he was just about 3. That's when he started schooling, though it wasn't for learning, but we were advised that the environment will also help him to prompt speech. So that is why we took him to school.
So how was, now that you have mentioned school came in, how was his first day in school?
When we first took him to school, he was still very active. He could not settle or rather sit for a minute. He still didn't have eye contact. He didn't have social skills. So he was in just a new environment. And he is, I could say, basically he spent most of his time walking around the classroom because he could not concentrate. His sitting, or rather settling span was very short. And yes.
A normal child, I would say, for a normal child, when they get to school the first day, they would cry when they see their parents going back home and leaving them over here. Did you have an issue with Crispin when you left him in school?
Apparently for Crispin, I think he was too adventurous. He liked adventure. And so his best, his best environment will be when he runs away from you, so that you can follow him, or just to find out what is around him. So for him, I think he was more interested with what is around, what is new, this environment, different from the house, the sitting of students, the way the people sit down, and he's wondering. So for him, it was different.
Okay.
Yes.
So Mwalimu, how many children do you have in your school? Because Rare Gem Talent School is both day and boarding. So how many children do you have in your school?
At the moment, or before we closed school, we had 218 from PP1 to Form 4.
Wow. And now that autistic children, their settling span is very short compared to a normal child, let me use that word. How do you get to handle these kids? Because when it's class time and they cannot stay in class for 30 minutes, one would walk out. How do you handle those who walk out? And
one thing with the children with autism, they like routine. And the best even to give them accommodation is to make sure that you don't keep on changing routine. So they get to know that this is what happens. Now when at school, it's usually throughout, even when for those children who do not have autism, it is run through routine. So they know that during this time, you get to class, you do this, and but what happens in class is not, you don't just put them doing one activity. You keep on changing the activity. We also use pictures. We use pictorial for communication, communicating with them. But routine has really helped us. Because they know when you get into the class, the bell goes. What surprises us is that when they are out playing, they are all over. They are all over the place. They get in that, and you see, because some of them have limited communication, they don't have verbal communication, so you find them playing. Most of them, they play by themselves, but there are those others who play with partners. And so therefore, when they are out, they are energy, they use all their energy. But what surprises is that the moment they hear the bell, they are the first people to get back to class.
Wow.
So we have no problem when they are getting back. You don't even have to push them. And even those who have speech, you hear them say bell, bell. So they get back to class. So using routine for children with autism, it's really good. But what happens when you change routine? You know, in school sometimes, like when I give example about on Thursdays, we go for swimming.
Wow.
And then it reached somewhere that we changed the Thursday, and it was to happen on Wednesday. It was chaos, explaining to these children that we are not going to be going for swimming on Thursday, we shall be going on Wednesday. Now look at situation also when it rains, that you are not going for swimming. They come getting ready, they ready that they are going to go for swimming, and they know this day we go for swimming. Before you explain that it is cold and there is not going to have swimming, they are going to do something else, it is not easy. Sometimes you find that is when they are all over. They bang, they jump,
they throw tantrums.
Yeah, they throw tantrums.
Wow.
But also because of happening again and again, we have seen that you communicate to them. You tell them, today we are not going for swimming. You don't tell the others and then you assume that they have understood. So I would go, or teachers would say, Crispin, go bidding. We are going to go for bidding today because the weather, it's not good. The
so
weather
you
is
have
not
to
good.
literally
You
explain.
Yes, explain. And they use a lot of pictorials. Yeah.
And how many kids do you have in a class, and how many teachers are handling a class?
Our classes, we have few students because our classes would have the biggest class has 12 students. And in this class we have 2 teachers, because we have a teacher and a teacher. I don't want to call them teacher aid because they are not helping the teacher, they help the students.
Yeah.
So that's why you find that even when the teacher is giving instruction, there is another one here who gives instruction, who helps the one who is not understanding or who has some challenges cope up with what the teacher is saying. Yeah.
And Mama Crispin mentioned that she got her child to school at 3 years. At what age would you advise a parent who is seeing their child is not behaving normally or suspecting, or rather they have gone to a doctor and they have been told your child is autistic? At what age would you tell them to enroll their kids in school?
The earliest, the best. The earliest is the better, because I imagine at school, at home, the parents leave to go for work. And maybe the child is just left either with the house help. Like for Crispin, he was the firstborn, therefore there was no siblings.
Yeah.
So for interaction and for learning interaction, and as he has said, speech. Okay, he has not learned speech yet, or he has not started speaking, but he has non-verbal communication. Where has he learned this non-verbal communication? He has learned this non-verbal communication, most of it at school. So the earlier the parents can take a child to school, the better.
So, Mama Crispin,
Yes.
you mentioned at some point that when the first doctor told you it is this and this with Crispin, did you go through denial at first for you to seek for a second opinion? Were you in a denial stage? How was the reaction back home from your relatives, your family members?
Yes, when we saw the first neurologist who explained to us that the child has symptoms of being of the autism spectrum, we didn't understand, as I have said, and so we could not accept, especially when we started learning about it from Google, how the development of such kids progress, and also when we started the speech therapy, because the neurologist clinics were normally done after 3 months. So in between the 3 months, you would be seeing speech therapists and occupational therapists. So sometimes you'll go to those therapists, and first, Nairobi is full of traffic, so you might get there like 10 minutes delayed, and you are scheduled, like you're on schedule for 40 minutes. So if you get there 10 minutes late, it means you have only 30 minutes of your time left. The child also takes a few minutes to settle down, to calm down, to accept to be in the therapy room. Because autism kids are in their own world. So before you get them to settle down, to calm, it's another 10 minutes. And so you have only 20 minutes left for the therapist to attend to this child. And so it was such a difficult moment, like when sometimes, that time we used to live in Eastlands. You leave Eastlands with the traffic, you go to Nairobi, and you only get help for 20 minutes, or sometimes even less. And the child doesn't seem to have any impact, no value added to the child. So sometimes we lose hope. So we changed hospitals. We went to another hospital. We saw a different neurologist. We were referred to their speech therapist and occupational therapist programs. We started. After a few months, we changed again. We went to even private specialists. So we really moved from one hospital to another. For us, we really we saw several neurologists, we saw several therapists, and that journey was part of our acceptance. In fact, sometimes I thought that I was not taking Crispin for the therapy, I was taking myself, because I was also in denial. So that gave me part of the acceptance journey. It was for me to accept that in reality, this is what has to be done on the child, and this is the condition that the child has. And it also helped us to understand what autism is, what the therapists do, and what the child development will be like from then. On the part of relatives or friends, I didn't explain to people unless someone notes or rather observes that Crispin is different, and so they get interested and ask. But we were very brief. We just tell them, yeah, he has a condition called autism, or rather his speech is delayed, but it will still come. So I didn't give many stories to people unless they prompted.
So now that autistic children are they are on routine, like Mwalimu just said, what changed at home? Like, what are the challenges you faced?
Yeah, there was a lot of change in the home for after the autism came, or rather after the diagnosis came. Like the issue of diet, we had to reduce sugars, or rather sugary foods, wheat, wheat is so convenient. Like even when you go to the kiosk, any snack that you get is wheat. Even when you wake up in the morning, breakfast, the easiest way to do is wheat. So it was a challenge. We started introducing like gouaches, arrowroots, and by that time now we had our second born, and sometimes Crispin will not take such things, and he can see bread around, or rather other snacks around. So we had, if we are doing it, we do for everyone. So the diet changed. The issue of having sodas in the house, you only have sodas in the house when it's necessary, because he'll just grab and have it even when you are not there, because it's for him. And when he takes such, he will be very hyper. So to make him calm, or to avoid him being so hyper, we reduced such food items in the house. And also our work, thanks to my employer that time, at least I get the off days to go to attend the therapy clinics, and that meant that I had to slow down my career progression. I remember there's a time I was given an offer for an operations position, but I knew I could not make being in operations with my special child, so I declined the offer, though they were very, they thought I will make it. They were very assured that I'll make it, but because having in mind that Crispin was in my life already, I knew that being in operations will mean I'm so tied up. So I declined the offer. So that also affected my career progression, and also our interaction, because there are forums that will not go, maybe family functions, friends functions, if we knew that Crispin will not be accommodated in such environment. Sometimes we'll go out, and because Crispin could not sit, he will just walk, and before you make your order, if you delay, he'll just walk to tables grabbing what is on other people's tables. So it's been a challenge, and we had to adjust a lot. Yes.
Mwalimu, she mentioned something of Crispin now getting to move to tables and picking things that he's not supposed to pick. I want us to talk about discipline. How do you get to discipline children in your school?
Discipline issues, when we have our expectations, and when we get the children with autism, we already know that whatever they do is not discipline issues. That is their life. Like jumping and touching something. Okay, kind of disciplining, you have to show it. We use pictorial. So if he has touched somebody who is on his way, remember it was not intentional. So we used to show him he has to say sorry. He has to say sorry, something like that. So issues of touching, because we use routine, we may not have such huge problem at school, because we are not going to take him out. But I remember there is a time we used to go for swimming on a at a place where the tables for lunch is just next to the swimming pool. We had to change from going there, because you can imagine now the children jumping from the water, even if they are not, they will not come and grab, because there is now the teachers who are waiting around to see. The children are like looking at you like this. So as she has said, we had to adjust as well. The place was good, but we moved from that place to another place. Discipline issues in school, unless maybe somebody doesn't know that you are taking care of a learner who has autism, where you have so high expectation, then that is when somebody can be bothered. But now that we know that one, the children with autism will not fight, and if they fight, you will understand what you need to understand what had happened before we call it antecedent behavior. What has he done? What had happened before? So that he can portray this behavior, and how do you respond to that? Because what conclusion, what would you do to this behavior so that you don't build it, and if it is a bad behavior, you don't build it but bring it down. And now children with autism. So a child with autism, if he hits, he has been hit before. So you look at what had happened. What had happened to this child. So if you hit him, he will know that the way to respond to this kind of thing, it is by hitting. So we really discourage where you are using any kind of punishment, and even shouting. You find that when he's jumping and he has this meltdown, he's showing that something has happened. Maybe like restraining him in class for long, so you need to take him out. Even maybe he wants to relieve himself, he jumps, and then you allow him to go out. But I want to say that we in our school, because we have children who have the entire community in Reagem understand everyone who is there. So even those who have no issues, they help us so much. Like even toilet training, some of them come without being toilet trained. But now, since the children will have to queue to go to the toilet, they will, this without toilet trained, they will have to queue. Even if he will not relieve himself that time, there is that coping that this is what happens when you go to this kind of a place. So issue of discipline, sometimes it may not occur because maybe Mama Crispin can tell us, they don't do things intentionally. Actually, the person who can offend you least is a learner with autism. They will offend you if you have high expectation. If your expectation are at this, like, and also you have to look, what did you do?
So you have to like check your track very well to know why this child
happens. The antecedent, and then behavior, and what is now, how are you going to grow this behavior? Are you going to make it more, or are you going to suppress it? So if he does something good, like a child now who didn't know how to go to the toilet, and now he has shown you some signs that this, now I want to go to the toilet, this is a good behavior. So when he goes to the toilet, you come back and give him a kind of a reward. That is what we do. So you have grown this positive behavior. Yeah.
So Mama Crispin, normally children would get to clash in the house. How do you discipline Crispin and your second born?
Actually, I would say when the second born came, it was by God's grace that he came in when Crispin was slightly above 2 years. And the reason why I say it was by God's grace is, one, because if that had delayed, probably I would have taken much longer before having a second child, because of managing autism and the experience that we had. And also, in addition to that, because having another child in the house, especially now when Crispin was around 3 years, they started interacting together. So that was also a support system for him. It was a support system for him. On discipline, we treat them the same. I would punch Crispin, I would punch the second born. Yeah, because we noted that if we make it different, then he'll he will have an attitude against him. And also, Crispin being the older, he had to learn that they are both children and they have to be treated the same. So yes, as much as Crispin does not understand, or rather communicate, we still discipline him through words, through stopping him, and when it gets to the worst, we also punch him. So we treat them the same. To us, I think we have managed that. Yes, yeah.
So Mwalimu, in everything that we do, we always have a challenge. What are some of the challenges that you have with autistic children?
I would say that the greatest challenge is when we have teachers who do not understand them, and they feel like, you see, this is not something that has been there like as old as school. So most of the teachers come without having, even if we find that we get teachers who have done special needs, it's not always you get a person or a teacher who has seen a child with autism. So they may have learned it in books, but they have not seen the children. So they come with high expectation. We also have those who have never seen. So that is one great challenge. Then the other challenge we have is parents' expectation. The Mama Crispin has said she started learning about it very early. I actually feel like it was good for both of them, Crispin and them as a family. We have parents who learn it when the children go to school, and we find that the teachers keep on telling the parents, okay, wait, the child will speak, the child will start playing, because the other sign that you may find with children with the autism is that they play alone. So their social skills are very low. So when you find that the child is just playing alone, then that there's something that could be show a sign of being in the spectrum. So we have teachers who think that the children are misbehaving. We have even parents who come thinking like after placing the child at school for 2 terms, we have failed as school because the child is not speaking. We have failed as school because the child is not still playing with others. So, and also doing the normal education skills. So for children with autism, I always advise, look at what can happen after the child grows. You may focus so much on speech, and then you fail to focus on social skills and the interaction and non-verbal communication, such that some parents spend so much money paying for speech therapists instead of doing occupational therapy. And when that happens, they will still come back to us and say, we've been doing this, and it's not happening. So they look at us like we have failed. Then also our environment is, we can't take children with the autism for boarding because of what Mama Crispin has said, because of the diet. The diet, though we do it during lunchtime, we feel like for boarding, it will be overwhelming for even the others.
So even autistic children, before we get to finish this, everyone has a gift, everyone has a talent. Mama Crispin, what is that Crispin has that you call, this is my child's talent, or this is his gift?
Yes, as I have said, Crispin is an adventurous boy. He doesn't sit down, so he's so much into activities and learning. And so far he can do like cycling very well. The only challenge that he needs to be in a limited environment, because if he goes with the roads, then he'll just go and he might not know how to come back. So we've had on few occasions when he went and got lost, and we searched for him, and we sometimes get him through the police. Like on 3 occasions we've gotten him through the police, because he just cycle and follow the road until he gets tired. When he gets tired and he can't come back, he'll just sit down with his bike. And on those occasions we found him with his bike. He can also swim. Teacher Nancy has said they have a swimming session or swimming day at the school. So Crispin is a good swimmer. He's a good swimmer. When he can go to a swimming pool, he can know when it's too deep for him. He at least knows how to take care of himself while he's there. He can notice how far. He also has interest with
photography. Like if he takes my phone, within 5 minutes it will have pictures, so many pictures.
and he knows how to change the scenery. He'll walk from one room to another, from one person to another. So he's creating interest in photography.
Wow. So
Yes.
Mwalimu, how do you get to nurture these kids' talent in school?
Well, I would start first by saying sometimes it is a challenge to be able to identify the child's talent. But what we do, we have a special day at school that we call it talent search. We have different activities that we place the children, like the children, a child will go work in this environment. We have tapestry, we have beading, we have photographing, we have journalism, we have salon, we have chess. So we put them into different activities, activity room, and there you are not going to just live there, because we have children. First of all, when we get a new child, we expose them. The first month we expose them in all those activities. This Thursday, that Thursday, that Thursday, you move until we see where the child is settling and doing the work or whatever he is doing effortless, like he's not stressed.
Yeah.
So, and he's enjoying. So that's how we end up picking that this child is interested at this place. And then what we do is, like, he has to stay and do a final product. What he is doing, he has to finish, because sometimes we get children who want to be there, and then after sometimes they have not finished what they want, he wants to move to another place. Still, we have challenge with parents who think that some of the skills are lesser than the others, so they want their children to be here, and when they come telling us this one is gifted on this, and so they push us. But when we look at the child, it's absolutely different from what the child is showing. So we put them in different activities, and during then we pick what is the child able to do effortless, and then we try to nurture that by making sure or insisting that he has done a product, it has finished, and then he can show this is what I have done, because also it is very, very satisfying when the child has finished something and he has seen this is what I have seen, or this is what I have done. And then when they take it home, if we find that he has not completely done it, we don't move him to another activity. So we move him to another activity when we are sure that he has finished this. Yeah.
Wow. So Mama Crispin, I want you to give us your final word to a parent who has a child with a development disorder and to a society.
For me, having walked through the journey, I would advise parents to be observant to their children's development, so that you are able to notice early in case there are any challenges, because the medics may not tell you when it's their signals. As I've said, we went through the vaccinations, clinics, visits, but we weren't told that Crispin had any signs of delayed milestones. So it's for you parents to be alert and to observe your child development, and also to take up intervention strategies early enough. Like I have said, we took up to the world of therapies, as we were told. It was a new world for us. Sometimes we were too anxious to see the results. Sometimes we didn't see the effect, despite the cost, because such sessions are only charged a maximum of 1 hour, and the cost is not little. So you need to do it, however, within your means, because we are all different, and sometimes you may not manage it. But try, drop it when you don't see results, and pick it up later in whichever way. Then also diets, follow up the dietary advisory that you get, because that will also help your child. There are things that were outside, like when Crispin takes soda, sugar, you will see the effect immediately. So unless we are in a children play forum, like when we go out, we give him soda, because we know he will play and he will release that energy. By the time we are back, he's tired. He just wants to take a bath and sleep. So take up the intervention options early enough. Join support groups. I found myself in so many groups. At some point I got worked up. I left them, because I was still new in the world, and there were older parents. So when they share experiences, sometimes it used to drain me. So I left some, but I kept a few so that I can also learn. So join support groups that are helpful, that will make you learn, that will make you pick things that you can do with your child or on your child. So, yeah.
Mwalimu, your final word on society and children with disability, and talk about the stigma side.
Well, I feel like the parents, when you have a child with disability, and especially with autism, which is now people are getting to understand it, sometimes the expectation drains the parents, and sometimes you find that the parent does not understand how even to communicate the challenges, because he or the family doesn't know. So what I would advise the parents with children with disability, first, especially those with autism, interaction or taking them to school where they can get some, okay, when you are at the with the child, there is so much you are doing. So even getting them back out to school, you get some help. It is like a kind of support system for you, because you are not out there with the child always. Then taking them, the children, as Mama Crispin has said, to therapists, and listening to, in getting into a support group, it is really important. And the diet as well, it is also very, very important, because sometimes, as I said, you see, even us when we give them those sodas and during birthday parties, because we always have birthday parties, we know what happens. Yeah, sometimes we know the hell will break loose. You can imagine we have 15 children with autism. When they get to those things, then what happens? And we are not going to tell them that now it is during birthday, now we are going to close this for there. So the parents need to be on lookout and get the information where it is important. Not so many parents will get information from groups that will mislead them, because when you have a child with autism and then somebody tells you it's just a moment, a few years the child will start speaking, and then you start putting some limit, like when the child hits 3 years he will start speaking, and when he doesn't, what happens? You sink very low. You say, before you pick yourself again to see that to start giving him support, you have now to use another energy. So getting information where it matters, it's very, very important. Interaction. Sometimes I find myself even speaking. There is a time I was in a matatu and I found a child who was crying. She cried all the way from Nairobi to Mlolongo, and we were coming to Kitengela, and everybody was like saying, you are pinching the child, you are not. Why is she crying? She was a girl. Why is she crying? And the mother now didn't know what to do. She didn't even, everybody is against her. And then I approached her and I asked her, have you had this child done an assessment? And said, where do I want to go? She was so like, but I understood, because everybody was against her. So even also, I was now coming to assessment. Assessment is very, very important, because that is where you start to tell, this is what happens, and this is the journey I need to take, and these are the therapists that I need to go. Without assessment, you are going to just live in a world where you think that you are the only person. So assessment is also very important. So I helped this lady. She came later to me, but I said, since I'm the one who identified this, let me refer you to another person for assessment, because I don't want you to feel like I did this because I have a school. So you get information from another person.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So informative. Thank you, Elizabeth, for coming. Thank you, teacher, for coming. I have been here with Elizabeth, a mother to Crispin, a 12-year-old boy who is living with autism. And I've also been here with teacher Nancy, the director of Rare Gem Talent School based in Kitengela. And we are here raising awareness on autism. Disability is not inability. And the fact that your child is autistic doesn't mean they cannot do what a normal child, let me use the word normal, a normal child would do in the society. Let us lend a helping hand where we can. This has been Let's Talk Health. I have been your captain, Marvel. Let's do this next week, same time, same place. Bye.